Mr. David Fritzson, welcome to Radical Metal.
Thanks
My
so much for having
buddy,
me.
my Mastodon brother, which we'll, I'm sure, talk about a little bit, but a filmmaker and director of some pretty impressive stuff. Wireless. Let me see if I can remember them. Wireless being, I would call that the big one. We'll talk about it, but a lot of awards. I think it's got a lot of views in theaters. I saw it in the theater. And not to mention YouTube, 189,000 views or so. That's amazing. And then other ones like Dim, either directed or involved in, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Sugar Booger, and I rewatched a lot of these today. I want to talk about Dim very, if you can.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I get the ending. And there's a few more. What was it? Small Talk? Did I get that right?
Yeah. The elevator one.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
hilarious. Not
Yep.
to mention some, honorable mentions about those little shorts, like the Blood and Thunder, Bart Simpson.
Art, I don't want to alarm you, but
Oh, right.
You remember
Yeah.
doing that?
Yeah. That's the. I mean, we're Mastodon buddies. We definitely got to talk about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely that'll definitely come up, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I appreciate. I kind of wanted to set you up because I'm really impressed by the things that you've done, and really the notoriety you're getting. And I would argue, what I would argue is just a few years. And I invited you on the show, and we discussed this the other day. But one of the themes of many of this show, we're still figuring all this stuff out, but is people that I admire who really go for it, and follow their passions despite what is a landmine field of landmines and challenges to really make happen. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. No, I'm really excited to be here and down to chat about all the above.
Great. Well, one question I have as a producer and as a director, what is a producer?
I get this question all the time because a producer can be such a loose concept, and in the gig economy that a lot of indie filmmakers face today, producers are known as like the bad guys. Always try to cut funds and save it as much money as possible. But the real answer I find in my experience is that the producer is kind of like the mom of the project. Is like the director can go off and do their artistic vision. The producer is there to see how that vision is possible and make sure all the logistics are taken care of. So they're kind of overseeing a lot of different things. Now, are they responsible directly for locations? No, in a bigger production, there's a location scout who looks for the spots to film in and then has it. But it's up to the producer to kind of be running those things with, say, other people in pre-production, like a production coordinator who's making sure with them that it's working out. An executive producer tends to be the one that's doing the actual funding itself. One film that I recently did a Kickstarter for, we were lucky enough to have 3 executive producers sign on and fund, I believe. Actually, no, was able to fully fund our film just on their funds alone. And so that was a huge help. But now an executive producer that's involved in it may have some influence or say, given that they are able to fund this kind of money. So when you get into bigger productions, sometimes the director and other people involved have less say because, well, it's other people's money involved too.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're getting funding, you always have to be sure that, people that are on board with the director's vision too. But back to producer is really someone who just goes and just like works on the logistics and just oversees really every single department, making sure things are running smoothly too. So it can be a very stressful job. In times there are ones where other departments kind of are so good at their job that the producer doesn't worry about things, but most times there's plenty to worry about. And I would say for the last production we did, Booger Sugar, we had to produce, write, direct, and edit a film in 48 hours for a competition. And to prepare for that, it took 2 months between finding a crew, setting up meetings for each department via Zoom, making sure everyone was on board, everyone knew what they were getting into that weekend, if they had any questions. And sure enough, we had some of our camera department wasn't sure of, like, I don't know how the editing is going to work. Can we talk to the editors in another meeting? So the person that's like coordinating those meetings and setting that up, that's the producer.
Mm. So, and I've noticed too, you got a handful of 48-hour films. So is that something you try to get involved in every year? Because you
I
got
try
three
to.
that I'm tracking. I don't know if you have more than that.
I do have more. I have actually 6.
Oh, wow.
So they stacked up very quickly this past year because I had done, and for clarification, the 48-hour film project is a worldwide competition where you're assigned to make a film in 2 days. And it can get very stressful, but it's fun. And you end up with a movie in a matter of days, which is crazy to think. But I had done 2 of them in the Washington, D.C. area. And then when I moved down to Richmond, I knew a handful of people, but I kind of had to start over with all the film people that I knew, because most of them were from D.C., Virginia, like Northern Virginia, Maryland. And so I thought, I'm going to do this 48-hour film project with the very few people I have and use it as a networking tool. And
Yeah.
a lot of the films I saw in the competition are people I'm friends with today and people I work with now in Richmond. And so that network just grew and grew, that by the time I did that one, which is number 3, I ended up being involved in 3 more in 2023. So my count of these films doubled in 6 months during 2023, because there's one in the summer, one in the fall, and then one in December. So it was pretty wild.
That sounds like an equal balance of a lot of fun and a lot of stress.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, 48 hours. I love I love deadlines and I love time constraints because I feel like it somehow reaches deeper in me to bring out something maybe I didn't know was there if I had more time to think about. But there are other times I'm cursing deadlines because you want just a little more time to make it better.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure it's no different with these films. The other one I forgot to mention that I think is hilarious is Ben. So was that a 48-hour in DC?
That was the first 48-hour film project that I directed. Yeah, it was also my first film I directed after Wireless. So my confidence was like through the roof. I was just so excited to be back on set and being able to make a movie again after that one. So we had a lot of fun with it.
Nice. So in Wireless, do I have this right? Was that around 2018?
Very cool. Yeah. So the script was actually written almost 10 years ago. It was written in 2015. It got shelved just because I thought, okay, my friends and family think it's cool, but that's fine, and just kind of left as is. And then in 2016, it got passed on to a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend who works at Indian Paintbrush Productions, who's a studio behind a lot of the latest Wes Anderson movies. And they read it and they just said, well, we don't have a use for short films, but this is really good. And they gave some notes on maybe some things to change. And when I saw that, that's what gave me the confidence to really get it moving. So in 2017, it was, we held auditions, we had it produced, it was shot, edited, and it premiered at a private screening in 2017. But in the spring of 2018 was its world premiere at an actual film festival in Northern Virginia. And since then, it was just screening at festival after festival for, I think, all the way until the pandemic kind of put it to a screeching halt.
So I was there, right? That was the one.
Yep.
You said Northern Virginia. I didn't realize that was the first screening. I
It was
feel
the
honored.
very first screening. Yeah. Yep.
And,
And
that's cool.
And it's funny because in the audience, you were talking about Small Talk earlier, the elevator movie. Both those actors were in the audience with you. And that's where I first met them, and we became friends, and we worked together on multiple, different projects together. You may have seen the guy was in Ben briefly.
Yep.
And then Eliza Kelly.
Other end of the line.
Yep. And then Eliza Kelly shows up in Small Talk, and we were in touch on a regular basis and have a great time working together.
Oh, that's great, and that informs some of the other questions I have that maybe we'll get to in a minute. But like how you build your network and all that kind of stuff. But before that, I'm really curious to hear about before wireless. Was
Mhm.
wireless the first? I mean, what other projects were you involved with? It's hard for me to imagine that you went from doing nothing to wireless because that was
Sure.
such a home run.
Yeah, I had an extensive theater background. I always wanted to be an actor as a kid, and so my parents would take me in auditions, take me to singing lessons, dancing lessons, and what have you, acting coaches. And I got heavily involved in theater in school and outside of school through my childhood. And then it started to fizzle a little bit when I got really into music around high school. By the time I got into college, I wanted to be a journalist for musicians in general, which that field, I don't know how well that's panned out over the years. So, but I bounced around kind of the creative communications department in my college, trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. And I settled on public relations, thinking it was just kind of like the safe bet, because it just seemed like it was. And in the back of my mind, there was always filmmaking, but I just thought, I don't know, it doesn't seem right. And then I got invited to direct some theater short plays from a friend. And I will never forget going out of the rehearsal room the first day that I did that, calling my dad and saying, I think I like this better than acting. So there's something about directing that really got to me. And about 6 months after that, there was a contest where they had a week-long film competition, like the 48, but you had a week to do it. They gave you an HD camera, they gave you a MacBook Pro with Final Cut, and you had to make a movie in a week. And I decided to do it with a short film idea I had in my head of music that I wrote myself, and put it together and learned how to edit through YouTube tutorials, and shot it in black and white because I didn't know how sound worked, and no idea how color worked. And it screened, and it ended up winning Best Picture and beating the film school kids in the university.
Nice.
Definitely because of story. Like, definitely because of story, not technical ability. But when that happened, it was just like, oh, I really love doing this. This is way fun. But by then I was just about to graduate. So I squeezed in a film course or two, graduated and moved on, realized I hated PR and tried to do as much video as I could. So I would do small video projects outside of little jobs, like, music videos for friends. And each one would be like a little short film of their own. And to pay the bills, I worked in sales and worked at a cell phone store, which you can imagine the experience I got for wireless.
So with wireless, between winning that contest and wireless, how did you up your game with the technical piece? Because that film is pretty righteous, dude.
Sure.
I mean, it's a real film.
Yeah. So that one was a film that I really believed in. But I just thought to myself, well, I could shoot on my little, Panasonic GH5, which is actually the camera I'm using right here. And I could do it myself. But I just thought, I love this script too much that I don't want to do everything. I want to be one of the dumbest people in the room. I want people way smarter than me to make this film. And so called a producer who knew how to make a movie, who knew people that could shoot it on a red cinema camera, which is kind of like the industry standard for a lot of TV shows you see. Mm-hmm. And guys, more importantly, that knew how to use it and use lighting properly. So for that was like my first film where like I had a full crew. I mean, there's a great behind the scenes photo I'll have to share with you where you think it's just two guys standing in a room talking, but it's like 15 people racing around them, moving lights, changing things. It's crazy. So, excuse me. But it really does take an army to make something like that. So I think it was just basically the fact of me just kind of admitting, like, I don't know everything. I want other people to be involved with this. I want the smartest people involved in it. And we got them. And I could be more grateful for them.
That's some great wisdom right there. And some humble wisdom. If you really care about something, get the best people in the room, and it's okay. And maybe even better if they're smarter than you.
Right.
And to make the investment. If it's something your gut is telling you and you really care about it, it's probably worth the investment, and it paid off, right?
It did.
Also making that jump from winning against film students to wireless, And how do you get, how do you even know who to get? How do you get the smartest people in the room? And also, how do you get, those actors were brilliant. I believe the
Mhm.
man in that movie won an award, or maybe a few awards.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Elliot Bales is a wonderful guy to work with. So let's start from the beginning of the question, finding people. So it kind of branched from just finding the one producer, Brandon Lescure, who was up in Baltimore area, and he just knows a network of people who knows people. And
mhm,
he, once you start in this film industry, it's a very, you know, how to describe this? I wouldn't say it's a clique, but it's just like everyone kind of works with the same people if they work well
mhm,
together. You always want to have
mhm,
that. So he had like a go-to crew, like a go-to sound guy, go-to camera people that he worked with closely on basically every gig he's done. And then for the actors, we held auditions. I had worked with Tim Torrey before, who played the kid in Wireless, Derek, and he read the script and said like, I gotta be in this movie, and he still had to audition, but he was in the top three, and we looked at it, was like, yeah, this is the guy. We knew it.
mhm,
And with Elliot, will never forget him coming in the room. And it's hard to tell because both Tim and Elliot are very tall, like at least 6 feet each. But Elliot is even taller, so he's just towering over me. And I remember him reading the script for the audition. The second he started talking, he sounded exactly like how I pictured it for years. And I just knew he was the guy.
yeah.
So yeah, having thorough auditions and just posting it in like professional acting forums. And if I didn't have connections, I would say these days there's a lot of great resources. Like people will find gigs through Facebook and Instagram. It's actually really probably one of the few reasons I stay on those platforms is because of how many gigs show up through those social media jobs through
Mm.
group pages or just general networking spots.
I'm starting to feel a little bit of shame for. I think I've hit you up, like, hey, when are you gonna put me in one of these things? Like it's that simple, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just your buddies, and with no acting credentials or experience. So apologies. That was years ago, but
Oh no, you're fine. There's I've got a long list of people I always love to work with and always want to throw even friends in as extras and such. My problem is my stories always involve such small casts of like 2-3 people, as you've seen.
what happened after Wireless?
What happened after Wireless?
Or what was the next project?
I think the next project was Ben. The next project was just honestly riding the wave of the film festival circuit, seeing what that's like.
Mhm.
Traveling to local festivals around the country, um, and just building a network of people. Whether it was in the DC area, whether it was in Texas or different parts of the country, was really helpful. There's people I still talk to that live in Montana these days, um, just from that experience. But Ben was the next project that involved a lot of people that had seen Wireless that wanted to get involved. The lead actor from that was also at that screening and wanted to work with me. And it just came from that. So I think it was just kind of a string of, little short films, projects. I got invited to work on other things too, as an editor, as a director. That, yeah, had me kind of get signed on to these things.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the visibility folks had in Wireless because of its success led to more opportunity, it sounds like. But
Mhm.
in Wireless, it was getting accolades. I mean, for a long time. I
Yeah.
mean, right out of the gate, some great accolades. But then I remember you posting that somewhat recently that it was acknowledged or recognized. Um, Maybe I
Yeah.
say recently, maybe it was the last couple of years, but certainly
Mhm.
after 2020 at some point.
Yeah. I think the biggest, I don't know about an accolade it received, but actually just exactly a year ago, it screened for the last time in Richmond, Virginia, at a local screening called the Richmond Film Network, where they showcase multiple short films from around the world, and they handpick the best indie films. And that was like basically that theater was like that screening was the time where I announced, hey, it's going to be on YouTube tomorrow, and it's been up for exactly a year, and here we are at almost 200,000 views, which is insane.
Yeah.
Um, the other accomplishment I think that hit right before that was I grew up in college. Like when I realized I wanted to be in film, I couldn't stop watching Kevin Smith films. Which if
Yeah.
you've seen Clerks or anything of the like, Chasing Amy, like you look at Wireless, you're like, that makes sense. Just the dialogue heavy kind of stuff. And so I was always into Kevin Smith films, and he recently bought his hometown theater and called it his own theater, called the Smodcastle Cinemas, which is like the name of his podcast. And they decided to have their first film festival in 2020. Was it 2022? Yeah, the end of 2022, and Wireless got into it. And I drove up to Jersey, like the 7.5 hour drive to get there, saw it in a room of like 70 people, saw Kevin Smith introduced to the film itself, got to meet him. He's a sweet guy. And it just felt like everything came in full circle just being in that room. But when I saw there was about 70-ish people or so, I thought, I think more people need to see this. Like it's time for it to be out in the open, because when you screen at film festivals, you can't have it on YouTube because they don't want to detract from ticket sales. So it's just behind like a private YouTube link or Vimeo. So I think it's time to let it go and just have it out there. And at first it kind of climbed to 1,000 views in a week or so, and then kind of sat still for a couple months. And then by May of 2023, something happened where the algorithm gods of YouTube just exploded, and it went to like 50,000 views and 100,000 views, and it just keeps climbing and climbing. And I couldn't be more excited to see so many people sharing their stories in the comments about it. And their own experiences and how it affected them. It means the world to me.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. Very profound. Does that get you to a place where you can monetize? This is a aspiring YouTuber to a guy who makes films, but also has a YouTube channel. Has that led to being able to monetize your channel?
So it recently has, because I just hit 1,000 subscribers. And it requires 1,000 subscribers, and I think it's like a crazy amount of watch time hours. But given the fact that it's a 15-minute film and it's been watched over 100,000 times, that was done and no problem. As far as monetization goes, you have the option to obviously like put ads into your videos or not to make monetization. I plan on, for any sort of monetization, I plan on more using the affiliate link option, meaning like I do plan on my YouTube channel to spend some time talking about camera gear that I love using and I want other people to try out. Say, like we were talking about camera gear before the show earlier, things that work well for your setup, would love to recommend that. And then say, hey, if you click this link, I would make a commission off of it with no extra charge to you. I feel like that's a more ethical way to make money than jamming ads. And for a movie like Wireless, I would hate to have like a toothpaste ad just like jam right in the middle of a crucial scene of that one. That's just like not in the move. So that would be reserved for without monetization. But if there's options for ads, potentially, but I think there's better options out there for monetization, such as recommending good products for people that work for me and might work for other filmmakers.
I'm attracted to that too. I only do one so far, and it's for Bitcoin, where I buy my Bitcoin. If folks go to my link, they get $10 of free Bitcoin or whatever. So, and I want to talk about YouTube. I want to talk about Dim, and I want to talk about Mastodon. But before that, I want to get to the advice part, because it's very, like I've been saying, it's very challenging to follow your passions, especially when there's a lot of friction in the way, because it's quite ambitious to be a filmmaker, I would argue. Can you tell me how you navigate that? How do you also navigate like having a day job and then getting this stuff together? As it relates to Wireless or any of your other projects?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's extremely, extremely hard to be a filmmaker these days, but also easy in other ways too. The only way I say easy is because compared to any time before really 2011 or so, we have access to high quality cameras with interchangeable lenses that are really small. There's this, right when I finished college, there was this whole revolution where people realized that you could take like a Canon 5D DSLR camera meant for photos that happens to have video mode, and you can change the lenses on it, and it's a great cinema camera, or it looks close enough to look like one.
Yeah.
And so a lot of companies were riding that wave. So these there's just this tier of cheaper and cheaper cameras that are coming out all the time. And even these days, I'm not opposed to telling someone, make a movie on your phone. It's really amazing what these have done too. But just the access that you have to do that is pretty amazing. Now, the challenge is the fact that everybody has it. You got to actually do it. And now there's so much technology in front of you, so much social media, so many distractions in front of you, video games, social media, you name it, Netflix, whatever there is, you got to actually do the thing, which is hard enough to do. There's different types of filmmakers. I'd say there's some that go to film school and just stay in LA and just, do every single film gig they can working as a PA. There are some that are more, they do it as kind of like a passive thing where they have a 9-to-5 job that might or might not be related to video, and they do it outside of there, but do that 9-to-5 to support themselves. And there's some that are kind of in between that do freelance jobs left and right that are either related or not, but still pay the bills and use it as their income. I would say I'm the 9-to-5 guy. I work as a full-time editor for a large company in Richmond, Virginia. And it's a great job where I'm able to just, edit videos that aren't really tasking for me. I can just kind of clock in, type away, clock out, and get out of there and go home and still focus on the things I love doing. So that makes it easier. I've definitely been in jobs where it's very mentally tasking and I can't, focus, or I can't, think about other art. And that's been times where I've kind of stagnated in my work.
Does the editing at your current job, does that help sharpen your saw, as that expression goes, your talents?
Yeah. In this particular one, it does, mostly because I work with over 100 editors, in a team. So there are times where we share advice about new updates with the software, new keyboard shortcuts, or I just learn things on my job that's I didn't know I could do that with this program. So there's useful advice. Previous jobs was more hey, do it this exact way we have it set up in the script, otherwise it's the wrong way. And it's you could also do it this way. It's no, you got to do it our way. Whereas this job is hey, this is what the manufacturer recommends. So I can kind of take those practices and bring them home too. So yeah, absolutely.
What is your editing tool of choice for your projects?
So I'm a Adobe Premiere Pro guy. I have been since college. I was trained on Final Cut, and then they changed their whole interface right when I finished school. So I switched to Premiere. I'm actually in training right now for DaVinci Resolve, though, which I really enjoy using and playing around with. I'm not quite ready for prime time. If someone gave me a project tomorrow, I would still use Premiere. But it's definitely an option that I would encourage newer filmmakers to try mostly because of the fact that it's a one-time cost of $300 rather than paying, $15 to $30 a month for Premiere, which is only subscription.
Let's transition, if you're amenable. I do want to talk about Dim.
Yeah.
Now, I watched it again. I watched it again today. I watched it way back when.
Yeah.
And watched it again today. I'm I don't think I get it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was definitely creeped out, scared. It's supposed to be a horror.
Yeah.
It's or the project had to be Halloween horror related, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if can we talk about the ending here? Is it?
Well, I mean, I was wondering, maybe Simon can put in a little timestamp of where we stopped talking about it. So if anyone wants to avoid spoilers, you can just put it right there or something.
Yeah. Simon, you got that? You got it. Simon, you got that? There's a boy that gets some kind of condition.
Mm-hmm.
They can't figure it out. It ends up living inside him. It comes to the outside of him, giving him boils and open flesh wounds across his body, which is very creepy. They can't figure him out, so he gets an exorcism. He then feels then he runs away scared, and then feels like he has suddenly become free and goes outside. But in actuality, it sounds like he dies.
Yeah, because he went on the sun.
He went out in the sun, which the exposure to the sun exacerbates everything, and he's wheezing. It's not birds, it's wheezing.
Yeah.
So you still have me there, but then I don't get they're in this facility that they built. I don't know who they is. And he's got to tell a story over and over, and he imagines himself. This is where I might get things wrong.
Yeah.
Himself as a 29-year-old man, and that's why you see that actor at his age telling the story. Is he in hell?
It's very close. You're so close. You're so close. So, and it was hard to explain. You know, we had to make this like psychological horror in like less than 2 days. It's another 48-hour film project, and try to make it clear without over-explaining or beating it over, you know, that audience's head, which I never want to do. Is that you had it all the way up until about the hell part? Is that the therapist is actually like the parasite that overtook him in human form. That's like what he sees. So after being dead, like rather than being in a purgatory or a hell, this parasite has basically overtaken him, and he's just been telling the story over and over as he ages.
Oh, so he's still alive with the parasite in him, but it's overtaken him in such a way where they can now communicate with each other, and that's all he has too.
That's all he has.
Right?
Every time she snaps her fingers, it just starts over.
Oh, that's cool. I'm really kind of ashamed of myself that I didn't get it.
It's a tricky one.
Awesome.
I've had some people that are like, that came to me like, wow, that was so cool. And I'm like, thanks. And they go, I don't get it though. Or I don't get it.
Well, it's still cool. Even if you don't get it, it's still cool if you appreciate these things like I did.
Yeah.
How the actress turns creepy all of a sudden.
Yeah.
When she turns her, it's just very subtle, but it's very poignant.
Yeah.
And it's very creepy. So you're like, okay, she's definitely a bad guy, but is she a demon in hell? Or
Right.
Now I know the answer.
Now you know.
That's cool. Was that done? Were you still in DC at the time, or were you?
No, that was my Richmond one where that was my first Richmond 48-hour film project, and I had a very, very small crew for that. It was like, I think so. Like for example, Booger Sugar was nearly 40 people, like 38 people of cast and crew.
Oh wow.
Dim was like 13, or like between 10 and 13 of cast and crew. So way, way, way smaller. Yeah. In fact, I was wearing way too many hats for one, because I was producing it, directing it, editing it, and even shooting parts of it too. Like we had another camera operator with me, my good friend James Couchet, who we worked on projects forever together in Richmond. But doing that many jobs at once is definitely something I'm never doing again, just because not only is it exhausting, but you might miss things. So like if I'm, if I'm behind camera and I'm making sure that, the guy in dim is in focus, that's great. But is it a good performance? I don't know. I'm not really paying attention to that. I have to pay attention to his focus. And so there were times, there's actually shots where you can see he's a little soft in focus because there's a better performance. Because I multitask that. So, yeah.
I guess those are decisions that are happening all the time for you as a director. I have a couple other questions about it. I had a thought that it might have been on purpose. I don't know. Where the shot of the gentleman, the 29-year-old version, right?
Yeah.
Of the boy, and the windowsill, but the windowsill looked like bars.
Yeah.
To me, it looked like bars. I don't know if that was a conscious decision, but I was curious about that.
Well, the entire film from start to finish was actually filmed in one location. It was filmed in a church. Yeah. And we were just kind of looking. We were looking for a spot because we had no idea we were going to even write about until the day we started shooting. We don't get the prompts till then, so we looked for a place that was really versatile. And the church had so many options between like that classroom you see, the church itself, and then that room that you described. And when we saw that particular room, we just thought that if we just pulled it and just had a couple of chairs, it could be like an AA meeting. It could be, a bunch of different things, but those windows just were so cold and sterile and have this look to them that like was haunting, that we thought if we get some great sunlight coming in during the day when we shoot, this could be good for something. And it was perfect for what we needed.
So that's real sunlight. That was beautiful.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's cool, man. Well, I appreciate you explaining that to me.
Yeah.
And you made it that much cooler. It's more satisfying.
Yeah. It's fun.
Thinking back on watching it. Well, why don't we? I mean, I could talk to you probably all day about all your films, and if there's any that you want to maybe talk more about or what you got coming up, well, I'll ask that at the end maybe.
Yeah.
But how we know each other, I think, is a cool story, especially for any Mastodon fans watching. Speaking of common threads with these videos, it's very heavily Mastodon related, or people I've met via Mastodon Mayhem. Cy Hope, the editors from Mastodon Mayhem, who Amanda Blackman introduced me to when I was wanting to get. Actually, it was after I asked you to help with, I think, a video, and then you're too busy.
Oh, yeah.
You had a lot going on.
Yeah.
And so, but I think it ended up working out. This guy, Cy Hope. But we met at the Fillmore in Maryland in Silver Spring.
Yeah.
At a VIP in line. And it was a bummer. I mean, it was great. But it was a bummer because Troy couldn't make it.
Right.
Because he was stuck at an airport or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've hung out at we got dinner and drinks before the Anthem show, and then we were also at a Baltimore show where we hung a little bit. I think that's so cool. And I wanted to let you know, I haven't gotten tickets yet, but I think we figured it out. We're going to come to Richmond.
Great. I'll be there.
Yeah, nice, dude. That should be a killer one.
Yeah.
Are you a Lamb of God fan too, or?
It's funny. There's only a few albums I care about, and Ashes of the Wake is one of them. So I was like, okay, let's go. I've run into Randy Blythe once or twice while living in Richmond. I was in line at a pharmacy, and this is where we're all still wearing masks, still in the pandemic and what have you. And there was this really, really tall guy covered in tattoos and long blonde dreads in front of me. And I was wearing a Black Lives Matter mask, and he turned around and gave me this like big nod, like theatrical nod of approval, and then turned back around, and I'm like, that guy looks a lot like Randy Blythe from Lamb of God. And I was like, wait a second. And I'm sitting there Googling him, looking at his tattoos on Google, and then and sure enough, it totally was him. And he was there getting a flu shot with his wife. And I couldn't help but come up to him because I had gone to Catholic high school in Northern Virginia. I was like the only Jewish theater metalhead kid there. It's a very odd combination to be in, but that was me. And I remember coming up to him and just saying, "Hey, bud, like, I got to tell you something." He goes, and he knew like he got recognized, and he was like, "All right, here we go." And I said, I remember wearing a Lamb of God t-shirt and the school priest being like, "Oh, Lamb of God, is that like a Christian band?" And I went, far from it. And he like clutched his cross, and Randy got a good chuckle. And I mentioned him, I was like, "Hey, you, I saw a live clip of you screaming with Gojira. You did awesome." And he goes, "Yeah, they'll be at the National in a few weeks." And I said, "Yeah, I'll be there." And he goes, "Oh, I'll be there." And one of the videos on my YouTube channel is actually, which I'll never take down for the fans, is a video of him playing a song that he collaborated with them. And they play it live for the first time ever in that venue, and it was an insane time. So
I saw that.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it yet, but I saw it on your channel. Yeah, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I mean, that should be pretty special. I don't know if the whole band's from Richmond or if it's just him.
It's mostly them.
You know.
I dated somebody who was in sixth grade with the drummer's kid.
Oh, that's cool. The latest drummer, because I still remember who's the guy who drummed for Megadeth for an album.
Not him, but I think it was Chris Adler, who was the original drummer who left. And
Chris Adler,
yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Well, anyway, I have to throw that out there. That Mastodon is very. I would argue. Well, you tell me. Very important to both of us in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
That's why I wore this one today.
Yep.
And it's funny. I have a Mobius record shirt. I don't know if it's exactly the same one, but
Oh yeah, I had to represent Mobius. They're still, I mean, even living in Richmond, this is still like my favorite record shop ever. There's such great people there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they are pretty cool.
Mhm.
Um, so tell me what's on the horizon, my friend?
Yeah.
What are you working on now that you can talk about?
Yeah. So what I'm working on now that I can talk about is there was a 48-hour film project I produced and directed and co-wrote that I was extremely proud of. It was another horror film one where we had a big crew. And it's a short film called Requiem, which is a film about a woman who's grieving the loss of her wife. And she goes back to the place where they got married after about a month or so after she loses her. And it was a type of film that a lot of my films, as I mentioned, are dialogue heavy, and this one really isn't. It's something that has made people go like, "This is a different move for David Fritzson than like what we've seen before." When it's screened, though, and just due to the fact that 48 hours things can go wrong in these sort of things, usually we can cover those things up. If things go wrong, we can fix it in time. In this case, there were just too many technical issues that happened during the actual filming and during post production that it made the cut. We made it in time because if you don't submit in time, you're disqualified. But even despite that, the jury looked at it and just said, "There's some technical shortcomings that it's not going to make the cut for the next round," which was
Yeah.
very disheartening because it was the first time that's ever happened in these competitions for me. But it's understandable, and so I looked at it and said, "This film is bigger than just these competitions. I want to actually use it to send to film festivals around the country." I think it's good enough of a film that stands on its own outside of the competition. So right now we are polishing it and added some additional scenes into it to make it stand on its own. Fix some sound, fix color, with some great people behind the scenes helping with that. I'm hoping to have more information on that by the end of the month or so, and have a public release soon, and even sooner for our Kickstarter backers that helped us out on it.
Nice. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's great. And is this a short film?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's just under.
Gotcha.
I think the runtime is going to end up being about 8 minutes long.
Gotcha. And is it an ultimate dream to do a feature film, long film, or
Mhm.
have you found your niche where you really just like working on short films?
It's funny you mentioned that because I feel like a couple of years ago I would have said, "Oh no, still got short films, no interest in features." But I have about, let's see, two other things that I want to get out there aside from this one, and I feel like after that I'm out of short film ideas. I don't have much else in the can,
Yeah.
and I keep brewing up ideas for feature films. So I think I'm going to
Nice.
be putting out Requiem, seeing if I get these next two little ones that I can't talk about right now, but we'll be able to soon, and get those out there. And then, finally make the big feature.
Well, hey, would you be willing to come back on should those things come to fruition?
Absolutely. I'm going to need all the promotion I can get and, anything I can to get the word out on it. We had a really successful Kickstarter campaign with my last short film that I'm really hoping we can do that again. Because when it comes to a feature, there's options for people to invest in it. There's options for it being sold to a distribution company or to others. So, like, there's a lot more options where a feature film can go. Whereas a short film, who's really not to be pessimistic about, it, but like who's really picking these up? Who's really buying these? Like, when's the last time you paid to see a short film? Like, you usually see it on YouTube for free. Short films are great. I still recommend anyone do it because it's a great way to showcase and show people what you can do. And that's why I do it now. Is I want to show people like the mood and feel and tone that I can give as a director or as a writer, so I can prove myself to do other work too. It's even why I made a 60-second short film, because if you only got 60 seconds, this is what I can do in a minute.
Yeah.
So it's important to have, but I just feel it's the time in my career where I'm ready to move on to something bigger. I think the other thing that's coming up that's big is that in only a matter of weeks, depending on when this airs, in mid-March, I will be heading to Lisbon, Portugal, because one of my 48-hour films, Hit and Split, won first place at the Richmond competition. And it competes worldwide with all the other first place winners around the world of these 48-hour film projects. It's a cool noir, modern noir, I'd say, that I was the producer and co-writer for. About the majority of the voiceover dialogue in this noir piece is a lot of my voice talking in the writing. And it was just a lot of fun to make. And if you're looking for something a little bit lighter with a cool story, I encourage you to check it out. So,
well, but isn't that on your channel now?
That one is not. That one is that one's separate. It's on the 48-hour film project Richmond channel. Yeah.
I want to say that I saw it. Is it possible that I've seen it with the links you sent me?
I did. So I sent you my channel and then 2 links, and one of them was Hit and Split. One of them was Booger Sugar.
What's the premise of Hit and Split? Gosh darn it!
It's it's the young kid, and it's like all in black and white, and he works like at an agency or like some small company, and it's like clearly the mafia.
Yes.
Like you in front.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and insurance. Well, not in quotes. Insurance has a role in it. Got it. Yes. Brilliant, dude. Yes, I watched it. That's awesome, man. Can we put those links? Do you want me to put those links
absolutely.
up in here? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's good, man. Unless there's anything else that we should talk about.
No, that's it for me. Thanks so much for having me, man. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Cool, man. Well, I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And I really, really appreciate your time, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Cool, man. And then, if you want to come back on when those other projects, when they come to fruition, we can talk through those too. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, would love it. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, hey,
Cool.
We'll be in touch.
Sounds good, man. Yeah. Catch you later.
All right. Thanks. Yeah. See you, man.
Bye.
Bye-bye.